but today we are going to talk about e-commerce marketing. I'm going to keep this really focused on simple tactics to grow brand awareness and to drive traffic to your website. We're not going to dive. I'm going to hit a little bit on advertising at the end, just kind of when to figure out when you're ready. But this is what you can do with all your own energy, blood, sweat, and tears. No money. And and hopefully give you some strategies that you can walk away with, either things that you hadn't thought of, or even just a better game plan for how to drive traffic to your website. So and feel free to interrupt me at any point if you don't understand something, want me to go back and make something clearer, or have just a really relevant question in the middle of the conversation. But I will definitely leave, I will do my best to leave some time at the end for questions too. So to dive right into it. There we go. So the most important things about marketing, here's what I think are the most important things before you really start to put energy and effort into it, is to know who you're talking to. And I go into this a bit deeper, actually quite a bit deeper in the second of this series that Nicole was saying is in the YouTube links, where we talk about brand and presence. But to really understand who your customer is, understand what motivates them in terms of, are they looking for in Lori's case, are they looking for vegan bath items? So that, make sure that is front and center. Are they price conscious? Are they trying to solve a certain problem? Are they looking for those various call outs? That actually, I just realized I didn't introduce myself, so I should pause for a moment, because most of my references are going to be food related. I run the Bitter Housewife. We make cocktail bitters. We do everything here in our facility in Portland. Um, I'm so used to talking to all these folks, I forgot that I didn't bother to introduce myself. As you can see, there's some product behind me. I'm on the edge of where we ship everything. So we do it all in our office. We do sell mostly direct wholesale and distribution, but we do sell online direct to customers, and we have been for the entire time we've been in existence, which is a little more than 10 years now. So I have a lot of experience in growing that part of the business from more than like 1 or 2 orders a week to multiple orders a day to 10 to 15% of our business. And we also sell on other marketplaces too, which is the third workshop, I think, is where we talk about Amazon and Etsy and other marketplaces like that too, if that is something else to dive into. So, okay, the most important things. Know who you're talking to, know that customer, know what motivates them, the things that are most important to them, so that those become the things that you're always talking about or bringing up to the surface of all of your marketing. Understand where they hang out and where they get their information. Are they on Instagram? Are they on Reddit? Are they on Facebook? Are they more of an in-person? They want a direct referral from their friend or family. How are they vetting the product that you sell? What would make them want to choose you? And also be very deliberate with everything that you do. And by that, I mean, don't just, try everything you're told you should be doing without understanding what kind of results you're expecting or why you're doing it. Understand that if you are posting on Instagram or posting on TikTok, why that channel? Who are you trying to reach? Choose your content with intention. So just really think through everything that you do. And we'll get into a little bit later then tracking and understanding what's working and what's not working. And your website, because we're going to focus on e-commerce marketing. So think of your website as your storefront. If you had a literal storefront, how would you welcome everybody in? What is the vibe that you would want to create? What are the things that you would want front and center? What are the things you would want them to know first? That is your website. And you really want to let your customers know that they're in the right place. They need to know what you sell, why it's important, so that they can quickly say, this is what I'm looking for, or this is what I'm interested in. And they will continue to scroll and look at your products and click through and ultimately buy. To that end, you want to make everything as easy as you can. Make the navigation at the top of your page really simple and straightforward. Don't have a lot of buried menus with lots of different choices. Make the checkout process as easy as you can, to the point of accept every kind of payment you are willing to accept. If you do sell higher dollar items, think about some of adding those payment plans, the Affirm type of things that might encourage people to have bigger carts. Make sure they understand shipping, how much they're going to be paying, all of those things. Really go through your website, have other people other than you go through your website, make purchases so you can see where they maybe slow down, where things get awkward, where something might not make sense. Or you see that, yep, you've got it. It's super easy and people can purchase with just a few clicks. And you always want to assume that your customer doesn't know anything about you or your product. This doesn't necessarily have to be the first thing that they are confronted with, but you want to answer all of the common questions that they might possibly have. Make sure you have the best possible pictures so that your products are clear. They can get a sense of the size, maybe how many come in a pack. All of those things. Make your descriptions as detailed as possible. And really just, do your best to try to make that whole process as clear as you can. And that second workshop in the series where we talk about brand, we also talk about website assets. So I go through pretty deeply, like all the pieces that you'll want to have as you're building your website, or if you already have a website, to go through and kind of have that checklist of, are my product descriptions as good as they can be? Are the photos as good as they can be? What are the other things that I need to make my website as awesome as it can be? So on to the marketing channels. And I'm going to give you a lot of information about each of these. But I think these are the 3 channels that are going to be kind of the core to your marketing always. And but it's the best place to start. It is where you can get the biggest results with the least investment. So email marketing. When you have someone's email, they have already said that they're at least moderately interested in hearing what you have to say. So you should talk to them as often as you can without being overwhelming. So there are tons of email programs that either link into all the various websites, Shopify, Wix, WordPress, whatever you might have built your website on, Squarespace. But most of those programs also even have their own email capabilities. They just they're not as user friendly because it's not the first thing that they do. So when you do start growing a larger list, I do recommend that you have a separate ESP, email service provider, something like Klaviyo or MailChimp, one of those that plug in, and you can manage your list much better in those kinds of programs. So you will want to collect emails wherever you can. Those pop-ups on the website give folks a chance to land and get, kind of make sure they're in the right place, but try to get them before they maybe jump away. Have that pop out to grab their email. When folks are checking out, most carts will give you have to put your email address in to complete the purchase. There is usually a little checkbox under there that you, as the store owner, can have automatically checked that they have opted into marketing, and they very easily can uncheck it and say they don't want marketing. But most people don't pay attention. So I recommend that you do have it automatically checked, because every email that you send will also have, you make sure you've got your unsubscribe in the bottom and you are following the rules, and you make it easy for them to just click and unsubscribe so they can stop listening to you whenever you want. But ultimately, your emails are so useful and fun and entertaining that they look forward to hearing from you. And you don't need to send multiple a week. I recommend most businesses, a couple a month. I send to my direct customers, I send 2 or 3 a month, and that's it. Enough to be top of mind, but not enough to totally annoy them. And you also don't want to make so many that you have nothing to say. You really want to share useful information. Tell them about you as a small business. Tell them about your process. Tell them why you've selected these products. You can do product highlights. Why this one? Lori, tell them how you make your products, give them that whole inside tour. And the thing is that you will generally have, customers have a lifespan. They may only be with you a year or two. So you can keep recycling that information too, or even just present it in a slightly different way. You don't have to come up with entirely new topics all the time. I tend to recycle a lot of my topics every year. I update them and I, kind of change it a little bit, but there's seasonal things you can talk about, holidays. You can make, relate your product to gift giving or, celebrating, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, the occasional promotions. We generally only do sales during the holidays. We don't want to train our customers to always be expecting a discount every time there's an email. We also don't want to train them to wait to buy until they get an email with a discount. So, you can decide what makes sense for you. Maybe you do, 2 big sales a year. Maybe you do smaller discounts, but you do 1 a quarter. Whatever makes sense for you and your brand and your product. especially if maybe you do have seasonal things as things are either coming in and they make sense for you to just bring them. They're new on the website or they're about to leave the website. Those are good times to do promotions. But emails, you pay for your email service provider, but otherwise you have that direct line to your customers, and it is just your own effort to write those emails. And hopefully everyone you send brings in at least a couple of sales, if not lots of sales. And social media. It's the love-hate of everybody who has a small business. Do I need to do it? Do I want to be there? And here's what I'll tell you is that social media works if you know that your audience is definitely there looking for the product that you sell. Otherwise, expect that social media is not about sales. It is about brand awareness. It is about validation of your brand and who you are. So it's another way for you to tell your story outside of your website, where someone can get a sense of who you are, your personality, your brand vibe, and whether or not they really want to interact with you as a brand and buy your product. So I think that is one thing that most folks go into social media thinking that they have to do it to drive sales. But most small businesses do not see much direct sales from their social media efforts. So given that, I would say focus on just one or two channels, especially at first, where you feel comfortable that your ideal customer is, and where you also like to engage. That's the other part, is that if you don't want to be a part of that social channel, it doesn't make sense to you, it's really hard to make content that people are interested in. Reddit is a perfect example for me. I don't get it. I know there's tons of people on Reddit, and I know that it can drive a lot of traffic and it can even drive sales, but I don't find it interesting. So it is really hard for me to figure out what to post there that makes sense. I love Instagram. I love the pretty pictures. I love the short little videos. I scroll it, when I'm waiting in line, when I'm, in the middle of cooking dinner. It makes sense to me. So that is the platform that I choose to put most of my energy and effort into because it's the easiest for me. So find that platform for you that makes sense for both you, but also makes sense for your customer. If you know that your customer is nowhere but Reddit, then I would encourage you to figure it out and spend some energy and effort in trying to understand it. But most people don't have such a narrow audience that they can only reach people in one place. So, and I encourage you to build a calendar and a routine around social media. Post consistently, but that does not mean every day. Post consistently in a way that you can keep up with. And that might be once a week. That might be only a couple times a month. It might be every day if you are the type of person who loves to document everything you do. Do what works for you and that you can keep up, because people start to expect that, and it helps the algorithm also to understand when to push your content forward. And you will see these ups and downs if you are also inconsistent in posting. So you can kind of also train the algorithm to recognize that, yes, I generally post twice a week in the beginning and the end, and I never post on weekends. There you go. It can be that simple. And For me, the thing I find most useful is to make a calendar ahead of time. Just tell myself these are the days I'm going to post, and here is the topic that I'm going to post about. It takes some planning, and maybe you even have to gather some content ahead of time and have it ready, or set aside a day to plan your content for, say, the next couple weeks or the month. But that makes it so much easier to keep on top of things. And if you are really struggling with what to post, there are tons of resources. Doing some Google searches for best social media topics, and you can, find some suggestions, some calendar templates out there. But think of what makes sense in your industry. And I recommend you pick a couple of themes that you cycle through either monthly or weekly, depending on how frequently you're posting. And those themes might be like a behind the scenes, or, a very much in the weeds about running a small business. You may do process videos, or in my case, recipes. I try to do a recipe, a couple times a month. You might then also do product highlights, talk about specific products. In my case, I only have 8 products, so I don't talk about that as frequently because I'm always doing the same thing then. But recipes I can do until I'm blue in the face. And in my case, also bitters, there is so much education around what they are and how you use them and why you use them, that I just keep recycling little tidbits of education. So maybe there's education around what you do that will help people understand how to use your product, why it's important, what you do that's different than your competition. I think, Lori, there's probably a lot of content that you could come up with about vegan body care. Why vegan? How is that different than the other body care that's on the market? Why would people care about that? And and social media has such a fast turnover that you can actually repost the same things every couple of months and nobody's going to notice ultimately. um, and or you just tweak it slightly, but you say kind of the same things over and over again. But it is establishing who you are, what is most important about your brand, and also what your customers are most interested in about you, what is most important to your customers. So all of that to say that I think, it doesn't have to be this overwhelming thing, but it very easily can be if you don't give it some structure and really plan ahead. If you're just like, okay, I've got to post 2 times a week, you don't think about it, you don't put it on, then on your calendar, you either miss it, or then you have these anxiety moments of, oh no, I need to do this. What am I going to do? So think about it ahead of time, plan it out, make a calendar, put your emails on the calendar too. Whatever you're putting in your emails, you can put on social media and vice versa. All of that content can get cycled around. And then the last thing I think that often gets overlooked, but and is the slow lift, but in the end makes a huge difference, is really putting energy, effort into content on your website with a focus on SEO, that's search engine optimization. So if you hear people talking about keywords, that is essentially SEO. So we could talk about SEO for hours. I'm going to give you a very kind of short, brief intro, and then I encourage you to dig deeper. And
I'm sorry, I
there's,
just want to butt in
yeah,
for just a sec.
yeah,
My I lost my nephew recently, and his mom is in the area, so she might pop by. So if I disappear, it's because my sister came. But I just didn't want you
Being
guys to think
recorded. So
I was going to show. Yeah, but I just wanted to let you know that I am listening and I am engaged. But
I won't take it personally, I promise. All right.
thank you.
So basically everything that is on your website, all the words, the text, the headings, the product descriptions, even the when you're setting up your website and it wants that description for the photo, the alt tags, all of that stuff is what Google and any search engine is crawling to recognize who they would send to your website, why they would send them, what is useful about your website. What do you talk about? What are you useful for? Everything is important. So, um, what you want to do is share content that makes you an authority, makes you a go-to and trusted resource for your customers. And you don't this and blog posts are one of the best ways to do this, but that doesn't mean you have to turn into a blogger and be writing a blog post every day or a blog post every week even. It does not have to be that frequent. You are rewarded for updating content, but I would say if you could, at a minimum, have a new piece of content, a new blog post or article a quarter, you are doing awesome. For a year that talk about, um, you know, what kinds of questions your customers would have. Maybe, Bonnie, in your case, your style of art. Like, talk about why your art is unique, or even what made you decide to, how did you land on the style that you have? What was that process? And why do you choose the subjects that you choose? There are so many questions that you can answer that just give Google more information about you and make you an authority. But then the other thing that you want to do is start to play around with doing some keyword research and trying to tailor your content to what people are searching for. So here is the easiest way that I suggest you guys get started. You don't have to dive into Google keywords or any of the um, SEMrush or all of those analytic platforms. Think of what your ideal customer is most likely going to put in the search bar that would bring them to your website. What would they be looking for? Or where would you want to show up? So in my case, I typed, what are bidders? And you do that in your Google search bar, you get your search results page, and there's usually a couple of websites that are right at the top. These days, I'm at the top. It worked. It took a while, but it works. and and you can see those websites at the top. What are they talking about that got them up there? Can you talk about the same thing? Can you have that same article or that same blog post on your website? And then as you scroll down a little bit further, you tend to see that Google starts to list other questions that are related to what you've searched. So that may also be things that you can start to address in terms of blog posts. So in my case of what are bitters, then you scroll down and you tend to get how to make an old fashioned. How do I use bitters? What drinks do I use bitters in? Those types of questions. So if you start to collect all those questions in a document, and then over time figure out how can you answer those? How can you maybe even answer those in multiple ways on your website? Like maybe in an FAQ page, frequently asked questions, maybe in product descriptions, maybe in your about when you have a little bio about you or the brand or the business on your website, but then also in these dedicated article, blog posts, whatever. Um, and all of that content goes a long way to making you then show up when people are searching for things on the first page, maybe in the top half of the first page. It does take a while. It's a slow burn, but that is what, over time, that's what gets that organic traffic, people that you have no idea how they're finding you, that they do start coming. So that is where those are the things that I would say are the most important places you can put your energy. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about more specific strategies, simple things that you can also do to encourage purchasing and get more traffic, more names, emails, followers, all of those things. These are the what can you actually do? So I do encourage a first purchase discount. It helps people get over that. I'm not sure if I should. It also gives you a chance to get their email right away. And I will tell you, we have a little pop-up that offers 20% off on your first purchase. People put their email in, and more than half of the people that put their email in don't actually use the 20% off coupon. But I have their email. I do not understand the logic behind that. But people are willing to sign up. They don't need that. They don't always need that discount. They may want to learn more about you. Um, so this actually goes back a little bit to that email. That's another thing to start to look at when you have those email service providers is when somebody gives you their email and they haven't purchased, do you have a little welcome flow? Something that says, hello, this is who we are, and we're so glad you're here. And maybe it's a couple emails that go in a series over a month or 2 months that kind of introduce them to you and the brand. We can, email marketing is also a long-term thing, but that would be one thing that you can kind of set up right away and not think about again. Or maybe you go back every year and review it and make sure it still says what you want it to say, because brands evolve, but it's not something you have to actively do on a, daily, monthly basis. Social media giveaways. If you are active on social media and your customers are active on social media, giving away some of your product in exchange for getting people to follow you, getting people to tag other people in the comments that might be interested in your brand or your products. You can even get them to do, other things, but those two are really simple lifts. You can have them, follow a link and give an email also to be entered into the giveaway. So there's multiple ways you can do that. But I also then recommend, besides just you giving away a product, partner with other local, like-minded niche brands. They don't have to be local, but brands that have a similar customer base And you all come together to have a giveaway package. And then you are talking, each of them is talking to their followers, which then are hopefully some new followers for you. And it spreads that, that reach that you can get, and the way that you can, you can only be entered for the giveaway if you follow all three brands that are part of the giveaway, something like that. And even tag, your best friend who you think would like this, so that you get more interactions. Those are, set those parameters. Pretty simple. Then you randomly pick a winner, and you send them some stuff. And it's a pretty low lift to hopefully grow your base. And you can do that, a couple of times a year. Some people do it every month. It depends on how much energy and effort you want to put into it. But if you have a lot of like-minded brands that are game for it, sometimes that's it. You just do a couple at a time, but you cycle through them all. Reviews and testimonials are another, collecting them is another huge resource for you, because having those reviews, that is content that you can then push back out that shows that somebody else other than yourself thinks you're awesome. So you can use those as social media posts. You can put them in your emails, put them on your website, use them eventually when you get to the point of advertising. They 5-star reviews make great ads that help people, they call it that social proof, that help people understand that this product is real and other people use it and they like it. And so I would, collect those wherever you can. Most e-commerce platforms have a way to collect reviews. If not, there are also very easy plugins to allow you to collect reviews. And there are more than I could list. So unfortunately, it does get a little bit overwhelming to kind of go through all the plugins, but I would find one that's highly rated, that's not too expensive. You don't need a lot of bells and whistles, but just a way to kind of automate that. You've made that purchase. You send them an email, once you know they've received the product, and say, hey, we'd really love to get a review. And you can be very honest and say, we're a small business and this is what we thrive on. Other people saying how awesome we are. Most people get that. And, not everybody's going to respond, but you'll get reviews. Micro influencers. I'm sure you've all heard of social media influencers. The micro influencers are the small ones, the like under 10,000 followers, maybe even under 5,000 followers. But reaching out to them and seeing if they are willing to promote your product. Oftentimes, they will do a little shout out or review or even an unboxing for just the free product, not being paid. That's why micro influencers are great to get started with. And you can see if it works for you. You can see if that drives any traffic. One of the ways to kind of to track that would be you give them a discount code that they can share with their followers. And then, anybody who used that code, what came from this person. So you can see if it worked. But focusing in on either local people or people who are in your niche, you may be able to find some partnerships that can just help broaden your reach. And then ask people to spread the word. We all forget as consumers that small businesses need us as customers. So when you actually remind your customer that, you know what, if you love this, the best thing that you can do to support me is to tell a friend. And most people don't think about it. It's not always obvious. So that is, ask them to share it on social or just ask them to tell a friend or ask them to forward an email. If you find that your product really is the type of thing that is a word of mouth product, then referral discounts might be something that you want to look at, or like loyalty points or something, where if a person does refer their friend, you both get $5 off your next purchase or something like that. But you have to figure out what makes sense for you. And that doesn't always work for every brand and every product. But I do at the very least encourage you to ask. Just say, hey, I need more people to know what I do and how awesome it is. So tell your friends and family. And then the last part is the when to advertise. So I mentioned in the beginning about making everything deliberate. So all those strategies that I talked about, you want to very consciously decide, what am I trying to do with this? If I am giving that first purchase discount, I am trying to see how many people use it. And then of the people who use it, do they come back and purchase again? Because that's ideal, is that you want people to keep coming back. If you are doing a partnership with an influencer, did you get traffic from that influencer? Do you know that you got traffic from that influencer? Did those people buy, or did they just come and look and they bounced? So being able to track the results of what you do is so important, because it gives you the confidence to know what is working and what is not working. And I will say that it is not worth spending any money on any advertising until you know for certain that people who you've never met and never talked to are landing on your website and then buying your product with a reasonable amount. The kind of general conversion rate, good conversion rate for an e-commerce website is anywhere from 2 to 5%. So that's pretty small. But that means if you have 100 people that land on your website in a day, 2 to 5 of them should be buying if you've got a good conversion rate. And if they're not, then you need to start to think about what's not working for them. Are they not finding the information that they need? Is it too expensive? Is it the wrong people that are landing? It's, conversion rates, again, is a whole nother topic, but it's not worth putting money into driving more traffic if those people are landing and they're not buying. I was just talking to a business recently that he got a whole audit of his website and his marketing strategy, and the first thing that was recommended was to put all this money into retargeting ads. And so he started putting money into retargeting ads. And yes, he was driving a lot of traffic, but his sales were not changing because the original people were not buying. They didn't know if they were in the right place or not. And really what he needed to do was to revamp his homepage to make it really welcoming to the customers that were interested in what he had. It was too hard for them to figure out what it was he was selling and what they wanted. So don't even bother until you know some things are already working. And then when you see a strategy that is working, whether that all that work in SEO and the right people are landing and they're buying, or partnering with influencers gets you this little flurry of traffic and sales, or every time you send out an email, you've got, this amount of dollars, and that's worth maybe going and trying to get more, money behind getting more email addresses. They're all, you can put money behind all sorts of marketing strategies, but I wouldn't bother until they're working. And then you can start really small. You can start with $5 a day for a week of an Instagram or a Facebook post or a Google search ad, and run it for a week and see what happens. And you hopefully will get enough data that you can kind of go, okay, that worked the way I thought it would. So then you can double the amount. Or it didn't work the way I thought it would. So what do I think is wrong? And try something else. Maybe you had the wrong pairing of picture and tagline. Maybe you were betting on the wrong keywords. But then when you do see that some of the tactics are already working, you've put a little money behind it, and that is working also. And we call that return on investment, when the ROI is right. So when you know that you've got some ads that for every dollar you spend on those ads, you make at least $2 to $3, $5, and you got to decide what is the return that you need to make. This goes into pricing and margins and all of that. But usually most people, for every dollar they spend on advertising, need to make at least double, if not 3 or 4 times that dollar to make it worth it. Otherwise, it's kind of a wash, or you may actually be losing money. So when you find that something is working and you're getting the return, that's when you start to scale. That's when you say, okay, now I can spend $50 a day, $100 a day. And then then you're going somewhere. I mean, small businesses go anywhere from spending $500 to $1,000 a month on advertising, up to $20,000 a month on advertising. But you have to know it's working. So I think advertising for most people is a couple of years down the road after really working through all the different marketing tactics and making sure their website is converting and making sure they're getting the right people to the website. The most important part of it, get the right people to the website and offer them what they want. Offer them the right bundles and the packages, and do they care about shipping or not, and all of those things. And then you have something that you can build on exponentially. So that is my pitch for the day. So the conclusion: know who you're talking to, start really simple and manageable. You don't have to do it all at once, and you can roll it out over months and years. And then when you see that things are working, start to scale them so that you get more of what is working.